The court hereby sentences you to life imprisonment in a maximum security facility. In that moment, the room did not erupt. There were no dramatic outbursts, no shouting, just silence, the kind of silence that feels heavy, the kind that tells you something irreversible has just happened. For most people watching from the gallery that day in Colorado, the words maximum security sounded procedural, a classification, a category. But for the man standing in front of the judge, it meant something very different. It meant concrete walls, controlled movement, limited human contact, a life measured in routine instead of opportunity. Before that moment, he wasn't an inmate. He was Daniel Reed, 38 years old, a mechanic, a father of one, a man who lived in a quiet neighborhood outside Denver. He coached youth basketball on weekends. He fixed engines during the week. He paid his mortgage late sometimes, but he paid it. And then one evening, after a long week and a heated disagreement that escalated faster than anyone expected, everything changed. This case didn't begin with a master plan. It began with frustration, raised voices, misunderstanding, pride. Neighbors later said they heard shouting. One described it as intense but not unusual. Another said they thought it would calm down. But it didn't. Police arrived to find a scene that would reshape multiple lives permanently. No graphic details, just the undeniable fact that someone was critically injured and later died. Daniel didn't flee. He didn't deny being there. But intent, what he meant to happen, became the central question. Was it rage? Was it self-defense? Was it panic? That single question would determine whether he went home or disappeared behind reinforced steel doors. The setting matters. This happened in the United States, a system where intent, state of mind, and proportional response carry enormous legal weight. A split-second decision can legally separate manslaughter from murder. In the days following the incident, Daniel sat in county jail, replaying the argument in his mind. According to later interviews, he believed it would be sorted out, that context would matter, that the situation had spiraled beyond what he ever meant. But prosecutors saw escalation. They saw prior tension between the individuals involved. They saw physical evidence that suggested the confrontation intensified rather than diffused. They saw choices made in anger. And anger, under the law, does not excuse outcome. The timeline unfolded quickly. Day 1, arrest. Day 3, formal charges filed. Week 2, bail denied due to severity of the charge. Month 6, trial date set. In the courtroom, Daniel no longer wore work boots and grease-stained denim. He wore a suit borrowed from a relative. His son sat in the back row, not fully understanding why his father wasn't home. And as the trial began, the prosecution built a narrative around escalation. They argued this wasn't an unavoidable tragedy. It was preventable. They argued that walking away was an option. The defense argued the opposite. They said fear clouded judgment. They said emotions flared on both sides. They said the situation unfolded in seconds. The jury listened. Witnesses testified about tone, about body language, about who said what first. No one disputed that a life was lost. The dispute was about how and why. As the weeks passed, Daniel's expression changed. In early court sessions, he sat upright, almost confident. By week 3, he stared down at the table more often. The turning point came during cross-examination of a key witness, someone who described the moment right before the physical confrontation. The phrasing mattered. The distance between the two men mattered. Whether retreat was possible mattered. Suddenly, the case felt less like a misunderstanding and more like a decision, and decisions have consequences. When closing arguments ended, the courtroom felt suspended. The jurors left to deliberate. Daniel sat still. His son didn't look at him, because everyone understood something now. No matter what the verdict would be, nothing would return to how it was. When the jury came back, they did not hesitate long. But before we get to that verdict and what it meant for Daniel, as future inside one of the most controlled prison environments in the country, we need to understand how the justice system reached its conclusion. Because what happened next didn't just change one man's life, it redefined it completely. I want to ask you something respectfully. Do you think this situation could have been prevented? At what point does emotion become responsibility? Share your thoughts calmly in the comments. These conversations matter, especially when discussing accountability and escalation. Now let's examine how the investigation and courtroom strategy shaped the outcome. When law enforcement arrived that night, their job wasn't to assume guilt. It was to reconstruct sequence. Investigators began with the basics: physical evidence, positioning, surveillance footage from nearby homes, witness accounts, phone records prior, reports of disputes. Each piece by itself meant little. Together they created a timeline. Surveillance from across the street captured audio, not clear words, but raised volume. That established intensity. Phone records showed a call placed minutes before the confrontation. Prosecutors later argued this call indicated heightened emotion leading into the encounter. Forensic analysis focused on spatial dynamics, where individuals were positioned, whether retreat appeared possible, whether force used exceeded what was necessary to stop a threat. Legally, this mattered. In Colorado, as in most U.S. states, a self-defense claim requires that force be proportionate and necessary in that moment. If someone uses force beyond what is reasonably required, the law may no longer consider it defensive. The prosecution framed their case around that standard. They argued Daniel escalated instead of disengaging. They argued that anger drove the final moments. They emphasized opportunity to retreat. Their legal goal was to prove intent beyond a reasonable doubt, not premeditation, but conscious decision. The defense strategy differed sharply. They focused on emotional intensity. They emphasized confusion. They argued Daniel believed he was in immediate danger. They questioned witness reliability. They highlighted inconsistencies in distance estimates. They challenged the interpretation of body positioning. In closing arguments, the defense asked jurors to imagine being in a moment of fear. The prosecution asked them to imagine being the victim and to ask whether the response was justified. Then came deliberation. The silence in that courtroom is something many jurors later describe as surreal. Time stretches. Every cough sounds amplified. Every door creak feels symbolic. When the jury returned, no one read their expressions. Some looked down. One stared straight ahead. The foreperson stood on the charge of second-degree murder. Guilty. The word hung in the air. Under the law, that meant the jury concluded Daniel knowingly caused death without lawful justification. It did not require long-term planning. It required intentional action in the moment. For viewers watching this case here, as the critical legal takeaway, the difference between manslaughter and second-degree murder often comes down to intent and proportionality. What the defendant meant to do, and whether the force used exceeded necessity. Now I want to put you in the jury box. Based on the evidence presented, the witness accounts, the forensic reconstruction, the escalation, what would you have decided? Would you have seen panic or responsibility? Comment thoughtfully below. There are no easy answers in cases like this, and respectful discussion is essential. But the verdict wasn't the end, because the sentencing phase would determine something even more permanent, where Daniel would spend the rest of his life. And not all prisons are the same. When the prosecution requested a life sentence in a maximum security facility, they weren't simply asking for incarceration. They were asking for controlled isolation, structured movement, minimal privileges. The defense argued for a lesser sentence, citing lack of prior violent history and community ties. But the judge had to weigh severity, deterrence, and public safety. And what he decided would shape everything that followed. Sentencing day arrived 6 weeks later. Daniel stood again, this time without expectation. The judge spoke calmly. This court finds that the severity of the offense and the need for accountability warrant a life sentence within the Colorado Department of Corrections. Parole eligibility will be determined under state statute. In Colorado, life for second-degree murder can allow for parole eligibility after 40 years, depending on the date of offense and specific statute applied. 40 years. Daniel would be nearly 80. In the courtroom, there was no shouting. His son lowered his head. The prosecutor closed her folder quietly. Daniel nodded once. That was it. But what does maximum security actually mean? Inmates who later shared their experiences describe it in similar ways. Routine defines everything. Wake up at the same time daily. Meals at scheduled intervals. Limited recreation, often indoors. Structured movement with escort. Cells are typically single occupancy. Concrete walls, metal fixtures, limited personal property. In maximum security facilities, privileges exist, but they are earned slowly and can be removed quickly. Phone calls are limited. Visits are monitored. Every action is documented. Former inmates often describe the psychological shift as the hardest part. It's not constant chaos. It's repetition. It's knowing tomorrow will look nearly identical to today. One former maximum security inmate described it this way. You stop thinking in weeks, you think in counts, in meal times, in yard periods. Another said, the hardest part isn't noise, it's structure. You live inside someone else's schedule forever. For Daniel, life would no longer revolve around choice. It would revolve around compliance. Educational programs may be available, but access depends on classification and behavior. Work assignments are limited. Advancement is slow. Time becomes abstract. And the outside world keeps moving. Technology changes. Neighborhoods change. People age. Maximum security isn't defined by violence. It's defined by control, and control reshapes identity. This case teaches something uncomfortable but important. Escalation rarely feels permanent in the moment. It feels temporary, emotional, reversible, but consequences often aren't. One argument, one decision, one failure to walk away, and decades follow. Justice systems are imperfect. Human behavior is complex. Self-defense laws are nuanced, but accountability remains central. Daniel's story is not about labeling someone as purely villain or victim. It's about understanding how quickly life can pivot. If there is one lesson here, it may be this: de-escalation is not weakness, it's protection for everyone involved. If you value deep, balanced true crime breakdowns that focus on legal clarity and prison realities, consider subscribing. We explore not just what happened, but why it mattered. And as always, share your thoughts respectfully below. What do you think maximum security achieves? Does it protect society? Reform individuals? Both? These conversations shape how we understand justice. And understanding is where prevention begins.